Our clothes, as a mirror, reflect the history of civilization. It is more than second layer, as nowadays fashion and style became the way of self-expression, seeing deep symbolism in surrounding material things. Speaking via things and rituals is absolutely in Kazakh style. That is why the history of national costume is an incredible world exposing our mentality.
Today in program, Otzi, Mummy in Trend, a hem with flounces that swallowed the sheep, regional features in nomad clothes, fur coat, all variety of fur production. Layering in clothing is one of the trends that stay in fashion year after year. Boho, ethnic, grunge, military, and even classics. Whatever style you choose, principle of layering can be found everywhere. Designers suggest mixing and combining one piece with another, accentuating good parts and hiding the flaws in order to look 100% harmonious. Where has the history of multi-layered clothing, which has become a trend for all time, originate? And how does this relate to Kazakh costume? What was the reason for the appearance of the saying, skirt with flounces that swallowed all the sheep? We will find answers to these questions as well as learning about regional peculiarities in Kazakh clothing. In different periods, many different designers demonstrated multi-layered clothing. Especially Japanese and British couture shocked the public with their provocative collections. In the 70s, 20th century, the idea of multi-layering was picked up by the hippies, who wanted to manifest their individuality and move away from stereotypes. In 1991, in the Odd-style Alps, the ice mummy of a Chalcolithic epoch man was found. He was named Otzi, according to the place he was found. The clothing of the man who lived 5,000 years BC ago consisted of at least 5 layers. He was wearing a straw cloak and several leather clothing pieces, a coat, a belt, pants, a loincloth. On the feet, Otzi had moccasins made of goat skin, laced with bovine leather. The jacket was made of skins of various animals. He also had a warm sheepskin belt and a bearskin cap. Otzi example shows that multi-layering, which is the fashion trend for us, was primary protection from bad weather for our distant ancestors. Layered clothing was a distinct feature of our grandmothers' and great-grandmothers' outfits. You only have to look at pictures from the past. All the researchers noted that nomadic style has always been a compromise between utilitarianism and aesthetics.
It
should be noted that Kazakhs dressed in multiple layers, the reason for this being natural conditions they lived in. Multiple layers saved people from wind, insects, small animals, and often stay in the open air. And also, I think that often, the reason was simple poverty. One layer of clothing covered the holes on the other. Several shirts and undershirts under a waistcoat, a camisole, and chapan, robe-style coat. One piece of clothing was worn on top of another. If we talk about Kazakh girls, they mostly wore dresses with flounces, camisoles. They wore skull caps with owl feathers. This can be learned from works of researchers that were written before the revolution. A doctor who visited the Kazakh land studied sick people and lived in Semireche.
Сондай бір осы жетісу өңірінде өмір сүрген.
They say that he wrote about Kazakh girls, about their beauty, about their clothes, and that Kazakh girls never covered their faces.
Туралы да жазып кетеді. Қазақ қыздары ешқашан жаңағы беттерін бүркеп жүрмейді екен деп жазады.
The most expensive attribute of the Kazakh female costume was saukeliye. No less costly was sewing a dress with flounce. Dress sewing required 5 meters of fabric, and hem took most of it, on top of which some more 25 to 30 centimeter skirts, flounce were sewn. That is, according to current standards, 6 to 7 meters of fabric was used to produce one dress and flounces. For those times, it was very expensive. It was then that a proverb appeared that a hem with flounces swallowed all the sheep, hinting at the fact that the cost of one dress was calculated by dozens of sheep. Kazakh female clothing changed in style, set of jewelry and accessories depending on age and status.
Қыз балаңқы сәл бөксесіне қарай тарлау болып келетін болса, тұрмыс құрғаннан кейін некесі.
Girls' dresses were slightly narrowed to the hips. After the marriage, girls' clothes changed significantly.
Қос етек көйлек киеді. Оның көйлектің ішіне
She began to wear dresses with flounces. For example, women's pants did not have a collar.
Содан кейін сыртқа киетін көйлектері таптадан, жібек матадан, содан кейін тауар маталардан тігіліп отырады. Іш көйлектерде ешқандай.
Dresses were sewn mainly from taffeta and silk. Underwear was no different, and the upper one was richly decorated.
Бәрінде әшекейленіп отырады.
Multi-layering, concealing the shape of the body, is inherent in the costume of women of any age. Such disguise was supposed to demonstrate an upbringing, the nobility of a girl or a woman. Our clothing is one of the manifestations of the material culture of the people, has preserved its ethnic identity, and to this day surprised the public with its harmony. For example, at the Miss Cosmopolitan competition held in Malaysia in 2017, among the 50 national costumes presented, the main award was given to the dress of the Kazakh girl, consisting of saukeliye, dress and a camisole. Ethnic style is the one that will give a new life to all areas of fashion. Designer Jean-Paul Gaultier once said, there were many examples of multi-layering in his collections. Moreover, Gaultier's love for ethnic style is quite obvious. Who knows, perhaps our costumes were also in his line of sight. The development of factory and industrial production of goods and clothing, including the strengthening of economic and cultural relations with neighboring countries, had a special impact on the national costume. How drastic was the change is the theme of another program. Today, we would like to note the interesting features related to regional differences.
Шығыста солтүстік қазақтар көбінесе орыс, татар халықтармен араласқан болатын. Сонда 19 ғасыр.
In the east, the so-called northern Kazakhs mainly communicated with the Russians and Tatars. In the late 19th century and early 20th century, significant changes occurred in the national costume of Kazakhs, especially women's clothes. One of them was the appearance of a dress in the Tatar style, which was called Kismali. This is the clothes of Tatar girls. Similar dresses Kazakh rich men began to sew for their daughters on a special order. If we talk about the features of such a dress, then according to the form, it was fitted and had tall in the assembly behind. In the south, one can see the influence of Uzbek culture. They have, for example, cloth called shagi. Hands sewn out of this cloth became quite popular and people still wear them. Close contact with neighbors has brought changes in the ways of clothes decorating. Our great-grandmothers, keen on embroidering zoomorphic and plant-like ornaments, began to learn new methods of embroidery. This can be traced through the examples of camisoles of the 19th century, preserved in the Abul Khan Kastiev Museum of Arts. One is southern, the second was created in Torgai region, another one in eastern Kazakhstan.
Біздің қазақтың ұлттық киімдерінде басқа халықтарға қарағанда
The establishment of Kazakh national clothes with sparkles came from the Saka era. An embroidery appeared in the period of identification, forming as a nation.
қалыптасқаннан бері қарай бұл жерде кестелену. Айтатын болсақ, батыс Қазақстанда
By the way, in Western Kazakhstan, belt loop embroidery with gold threads is used, and in the south, they always use stitching.
маталардың сырттары
Outside the fabric, for example, for sewing lines, stitching technique is used to stitch everything. It's with large stitches using a thick needle.
көктеп тігу. Сол мысалға сырмақ сияқты.
Well, it is all connected with the relationship between South Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan, Tajikistan people, because at one time the Great Silk Road passed through the territory of southern Kazakhstan.
Жібек жолы сол оңтүстік Қазақстаннан өткеннен кейін бұл жерде өзі Өзбекстанның елінде шығаратын
Tafeta, striped fabric produced in Uzbekistan, is used to decorate the outside of the chapan.
кестелеу жағы
Embroidery, sewing with large ties over the edge, is connected with Russia.
деген байланыстығымыз бар.
The Kazakhs attach great importance to the wedding dresses of their daughters. They often spent almost all the fortune they had to make and decorate it. It was a tradition unitary to all the people, but there were regional differences in the wedding attire.
На юге предпочитали декорировать орнаментом.
In the south, they preferred to decorate with small ornaments and embroidery.
На севере
In the
обшивали
north, Saukilye and Dresham were decorated with small copper coins.
Запад больше предпочитал клинья, длинные на саукеле. И так
Ural's girls' dresses had similar manner of cutting with Russian chemeni, as the cities in close proximity with Russian borders.
с Россией ихний крой больше напоминал русский кафтан.
In the south, because of the neighborhood with Uzbekistan and the eastern countries, various patterns embroidered with sequins prevail.
Отношение влияло соседство. Так как я уже сказала, юг он граничит с Узбекистаном и восточными поэтому у них вот богатство все-таки больше было блесков, украшений различных вышивок, орнаментов.
Clothes of nomads could not only speak about the region they are from, but also about their origin and clan they belong to.
аймақтарда көбінесе мына бас киімдерде ерекшеліктер болды. Бас киімдерде соның ішінде
In the regions, the main differences was in the headgear. It is particularly noticeable in the hats, tumaks,
артқы жоны ұзынша болып келеді.
Naiman tumak, Ayrgen tumak. Middle Jus tumak's back is elongated. In other regions, the back is short and pointed.
Қаша шошақты бөлі болып, сондай өзгеріс
All these show the ancestral differences of people.
рулық айырмашылықтарын көрсетіп тұратын.
Men were recognized by tumak, women were recognized by ornaments and embroidery on their clothes.
На саукеле одевался сверху жилек.
A young woman wore zhilek, a thin silk scarf that young women wear in the first months of marriage, which was fully embroidered by her mother. This was the mother's way of giving guidance to the daughter. Each neatly embroidered pattern spoke of the origin of the girl. The fixing of the owl feathers in a certain place is also a generic feature.
Также показывало, что эта девушка принадлежит к какому-то клану.
After the birth of a child, woman puts on kimishek, traditional headgear of married women. When she goes somewhere, ornament on her headdress could determine region she is from and her clan.
В гости можно было отличить, с какого джуза и какому клану и откуда вообще эта девушка и женщина пришла.
The formation of the nomadic style was influenced by the climate of the area they lived in and types of economic activity they were engaged in. In the south, they used light cotton silk fabric. In the west and north, they deliberately cut clothes in larger sizes to cover several layers due to the severe climate. Also, among the nomads, there was a great demand for different types of fur coats, both for men and women. We will not be mistaken if we call a fur coat one of the oldest elements of clothing. Even primitive people used animal skins as loincloths, aprons, bedspreads, and much more. Such a variety of clothes made of genuine leather and fur would now be envied by either of us. Over time, people learned to tan, paint the skin, and sew quite decent clothes. Western European Celts, for example, cut themselves fur tunics from leather. Coat more approximate to modern fur model appeared on the territory of Mongolia, where winters are severe and the wind blows all the time. On cold days, the soldiers of Genghis Khan wore 2 fur coats at once. One of them was put on fur inside. What kind of fur coats did our ancestors wear?
Батыс Қазақстан, суық жақтарды, солтүстік, шығыс болатын болса.
If you take Western Kazakhstan, in the cold regions, north and east, people always wore warm chapans with collar, on which beaver's fur was sewn. They also wore fur coats from wolf and fox skins.
Көбінесе мынау батыс Қазақстанның Ақтөбе, Ақтау деген сияқты.
In Western Kazakhstan, in Aktobe, Aktau, lambskin coats were popular.
Тондар тігіліп отыр.
Lambskin fur coats are made from sheepskin, without cutting its wool, but processed and lined with a simple cloth.
Алғаннан кейін кәдімгі маталармен қапталу.
There were options with velvet and corduroy. And in the south, milled chapans are very light.
Қазақстандардың ер адамдардың шапандары өте жеңіл.
Most fashionable fur coats were the ones sewn from other furs, martens and sables. Beaver and brocade fur coats are especially valuable. Coats of wolfskin were only in the wardrobes of rich people. There was a belief according to which wolfskin was not allowed to be worn by men younger than 25 years of age. That is, the Kazakhs believed that not every jigit, young man, is able to withstand the heat from the skin of a toxic animal. He could weaken or even get sick at all. The same Kazakh costume, handmade and embroidered with ornaments, styled for regional and patrimonial features, gradually gave way to typical factory clothes. There appeared an opportunity to buy ready-made clothes, starting from shirt to coat, including various types of fur coats. Sewing clothes at home had also come to a standstill. From universal to ethnic, time has shown that fashion is cyclical and modern designers return to their national roots. I was a historian and I knew a lot about national clothes, so I started working with ethnic style from the very beginning. We show how historical things can be modern. When we decorate dresses, we do it the way our great-grandmothers wore such dresses in everyday life. We do not impose ornaments on the dress, because ornaments began to be used only many centuries later. And we use mostly geometry, since we refer to ethno-motifs. Kazakh girl's outfit in its purest form, with multi-layered flounces on the hem, with camisoles embroidered with grandmother's hands, many valued decorations, can only be found on the pages of historical albums. However, on the city streets, we can see women in its stylizations adapted to the requirements of modern time. In the times of scarcity, little girls' dresses were sewn for the next 5 or 8 years. Every year, they added ruffles to the hem of the dresses. A piece of fabric was folded and sewn. 4 or 5 rows were added. As a girl grows, gets taller, one ruffle is loosened, thereby lengthening the dress. Thus, year after year, frills of the dress are loosened and worn. Folds are made even on the shoulders on both sides. When the girl grows up and her shoulders become wider and her breasts become larger, then the folds are loosened. Nowadays, there is no such necessity. As you know, there are dozens of dresses and people can afford them. Such things remain in our memory, like the warm memories left by our grandmothers. We, on our hand, bring these features to our products.
астына шалбар.
Previously, girls wore pants. Outside, they wore vests, but now, there is no such need. Layering in clothing has been preserved in the form of ruffles on the dress hem.
Жоқ. Біздер ол көп қабатлықты көйлектің етегіне қосқан бүрмелеріне аударамыз. Бүрмесін 2 қатар, 3 қатар, 4 қатарға дейін жасаймыз.
We sew 2, 3 rows, and even 4 rows of ruffles. Wear a waistcoat over it, and then belt and chappan.
Кеудешесінің сыртынан белдігі болады, оның сыртынан шапан кигіземіз.
The expression, everything new is a well-forgotten old, well fits Kazakh ethnos, reviving by history pages.